on which way forward for the One Kenya Alliance. Yesterday, the NC party had their National Delegates Conference where they endorsed Honorable Musa Mudavadi as their preferred candidate or aspirant for the presidential seat. But the event in itself wasn't necessarily all smooth, as we saw two principals of the One Kenya Alliance walk out. Some say they were actually moving into this meeting blind, but some say it could be choreographed. Whether or not that is true, we don't know, but we know one thing for sure is that they say they won't be working with the deputy president. So is the One Kenya Alliance dead or not? And what is their future? To help me delve deeper into this conversation is Buka Ngesa Omole, who's the National Vice Chair of the Communist Party of Kenya. Buka, just to start us off, I also want to give you the opportunity to just jump onto this. I hear there was some sort of earthquake yesterday. I didn't necessarily feel it, but how did you see this from your end?
Thank you very much, Alan. And indeed, the analysis of the national politics yesterday confirmed, the position that the Communist Party of Kenya has since always held since the beginning of this presidential conversation. Most importantly is that we were hoping to receive a real earthquake in terms of announcement yesterday. But look like next time when the OCA principal, Musa Mudavadi, will then promise Kenya earthquake, Kenya will take it with a pinch of salt, because we did not see major announcement in OCA politics yesterday. But one thing we must admit, that there were certain progressive issues that Mudavadi spoke of yesterday. For example, on heavy taxation, on issues to do with employment, and many other issues that will interest the Kenyan people. But also there was an anticlimax to the event. I think every Kenyan saw it on the national broadcaster TV when there were people among the OCA that wanted to take Kenya behind, the politics of what you call sociocentric politics, or politics of tribal arithmetic. And that was unfortunately by, Waiguru's talk there. Even though Duale came to counter it, but the damage has already been caused, that at least at the background, they were also working on tribal arithmetic other than the politics of, ideas. But the Communist Party of Kenya has since said before that there are other people that have announced their presidential candidate, but they are not serious about it. They're just pretending to be serious about it. In fact, they are masquerading as presidential candidates to try to build, some clout to negotiate for political positions in those places. And we have continued to reject that. And that is why, if you look at even the defunct BBI, it was a conspiracy to try and accommodate certain individuals, certain tribal elites, to try and, put them through in terms of political position. Right. So what Kenyans will have expected is some seriousness if Mudavadi wanted to be the president of Kenya.
Okay, well, it's a good thing you've talked about BBI, but we'll just move on to that. Let's also speak on the concern that you've raised there. You've said that there are people masquerading to be presidential candidates, but just the true thing is that they're in it to negotiate for political positions moving forward. I'm trying to understand the arithmetic that gets into this equation where we have Musa Mudavadi joining the UDA team. So the Standard, or pardon me, the Sunday Nation actually had an interesting post about Musa Mudavadi, and he said yesterday's move would actually determine his position, whether he's going to move forward stronger politically or it's going to be suicidal. Where do you think he falls as of yesterday's announcement and move?
What probably I think has been left in the Kenyan mind is that our politics, even though we have intensified the pressure from the base, especially led by the Communist Party of Kenya, to try and reform our politics, to make it focused on politics of ideas. But yesterday's announcement by the leader of ANC has actually indeed confirmed that the political leadership at the top, are alienated from the masses that are from below, because the masses are asking for good services. The masses are asking for, they want social, they want social services. They want the total implementation of the Constitution. But in the event that people move towards an electioneering period, like we had, this year, you realize that the main contenders, they are only in it for what they can get as individuals, and they try to balkanize their tribal, constituency to negotiate with them in terms of getting positions. Right. About the future of Mudavadi, I will still think that he will still need to reinvent himself much purposely on the politics of ideas. For example, the Communist Party of Kenya is very glad the type of conversations that is taking place at the national level. For example, Alan, if you see, we are talking about certain economic models. This is a progress that has been forced upon these people by the Kenyan masses. In many, I think a few years ago, people will just go to political rallies and ramp up tribalism and try to, or pull the masses on their side by setting one tribe against the other. But we have seen, Ruto's bottom-up approach is talking about, a class issue that is affecting the Kenyan people. We have seen Raila's issues on state welfareism, promising the unemployed people that he will give them 6,000 shillings. So even if they do not analyze such ideas or such economic models, but we know that we are moving as a country from raw tribal politics to politics that can influence people based on ideas. Okay. My advice to the ANC team is that they should be able to get back on track to build a political party that is firmly on ideology. And that is what at least my political party, the Communist Party of Kenya, has since been, talking about political literacy and identifying themselves as a Marxist-Leninist party and trying to drive a pro-people agenda and an alternative. So even though we are not going to have a presidential candidate now, but the Communist Kenya is going to be, a force in terms of election politics in the county government, in the national, in the national conversations that takes place in this country, Alan.
All right. So we had the consolidated BBI case being had sometime last week, and of course they took a break to actually come up with their verdict, which we'll be receiving in a couple of days. And this is a matter in court, so we can't necessarily delve deep into it. But just looking at those 4 issues that were supposed to be answered upon and will receive the verdict from the bench anytime soon. Looking at those proceedings and the proposals and the issues that are supposed to be given a verdict on, where do you see the BBI with that verdict that we're expecting? Are we expecting to see the Supreme Court upholding the decision of the High Court, or we are actually seeing a possible overturning of that decision?
Alan, thank you very much on that. But remember, I think every Kenyan that is following the BBI procedures of the Supreme Court is full of hope. At least there are certain Kenyans that are patriotic. There are certain lawyers that are willing to defend the Kenyan Constitution. There are certain people that want this country to progress. I think that is very clear from the deliverables of various lawyers. For some of us, we are proud of advocates like Aluchir, the one that was defending the people's position. But also, secondly, is that the BBI, as it is, already had been declared a project of fraud. They did not follow the due process of law to advance it. Anybody that will want to appeal such a process, that have actually made it to the Supreme Court to advance, such a fraud, I think the Kenyan people are angry about it, because we have seen a lot of resources being spent on this BBI project. And the Kenyan masses, if you look at them, they still don't have basic issues that they're dealing with. They're still dealing with issues to do with unemployment. But the issues that are at the court were basically on issues to do with procedure. Yeah. And it will be unfortunate if the Supreme Court actually overturned the High Court's ruling, because I think the High Court ruling was the most progressive in terms of highlighting processes in terms of highlighting who should, provoke the people's referendum, and even in terms of financing of certain of those processes.
Yes.
So from where we sit, from the Communist Party of Kenya, we still hold a strict position that the BBI was, a political gimmick to try to distribute political positions by a few individuals and to facilitate a State House project that, eventually is not anchored on the people's agenda. So we will ask those proponents of BBI to retire that course and come back to advance the agenda of the people.
All right. Well, we've had conversations around the BBI. Some say there are proposals in it that should go through. Some say there are proposals that are not good for the country. But you've talked about the procedural concerns that are actually looking into when it comes to the issue pertaining to the BBI and looking at the counsels and the lawyers that actually put across the cases last week, very compelling cases, right from the Solicitor General to former AG Githu Muigai. So in the event that the Supreme Court overturns that High Court ruling and we are left with this possible BBI that is to be implemented, we're looking at the timings of the next general elections and when we are supposed to go to a referendum, if we're supposed to go to a referendum. So do you see us moving into a situation where we actually vote on the same day when it comes to the BBI as well as the general elections? Is it a possibility?
I think if the BBI passes through, the proponents will be happy because they are able to sign post-election deals. They are able to sign up who will take positions after the BBI goes through. So it will ease in certain pressures in terms of the people who are vying for presidential candidate. It will also give them more room to negotiate with various tribal leaders from petty nationalities. But having said that, the BBI proponents, I'm hoping that they will fail in the Supreme Court, because if they don't fail, they will face another humiliation when the issue is brought through the referendum. Because there are certain issues there that are quite pertinent to the Kenyan people, especially those people who have been in this struggle. Yeah. For example, when you take the police oversight, authority and take it to the ombudsman's office, and the Kenyan people have been talking about, police excesses in our country. That is something that is much closer to the poor people in this country. And secondly, also, if you look at BBI people advancing their agenda on, we found that there is a lot of foreign interest, or what we call Eurocentric view. They are going to turn our economy and our processes back. Because look at BBI proposing that since the Kenyan people are so corrupt, we will hire international agencies to recruit, our head of army, head of certain positions.
Let me just jump in right there. Of course, there are concerns that people are not necessarily looking into to actually see it pass. There could be bad things, there are good things in it. But you've talked of a very important one, something pertaining to the ombudsman. And I want to give you just 30 seconds to actually respond to this. Critics and some people have argued that when you look at the case of the ombudsman and it being handled by the executive, there is the concern that who checks the judges? Right now, we have the judiciary as an independent institution, but who checks the judges? Does it not give them that level ground where they're operating according to what they believe and stand for?
Alan, the way the Kenyan state is organized, we have three branches of government. The parliament is actually the oversight, and also to look at the representation oversight, and it oversights not just the executive, but also oversights the judiciary. Secondly, if you look at the executive, if you take a critical position of some organizations within government that is able to check the excesses of the police. You mean the executive itself uses the police to facilitate certain ends. Okay. But if you take it towards the office of the ombudsman and make it under the executive, you're actually neutralizing. Whoever needs to oversight on the judiciary is the parliament, is the legislature that, I look, for example, maybe if I could tie a comment to that the role of members of parliament in this country has been, diluted. They are actually performing roles that have been abdicated by the county government and the national government, trying to talk about issues to do funeral cost in the village. I think they're trying to cheapen the process of legislation. And that's why I continue to ensure my people in game that when they elect me as their member of parliament, then I will be able to, redeem the positions of the members of parliament and make them responsible for an oversight, representation, and to advance the courses of the legislation. That do not just do an oversight to the judiciary, Alan, but also do an oversight to the executive.
All right, Buka, I saw what you did there. Pitching your case to the Kenyan people, it's very much allowed. Thank you for making time for us this
Can I have a comment on IBC, please?
I believe we're out of time. I'll give you another opportunity, Buka. That was Buka Ngesa Mole, the National Vice Chair of the Communist Party of Kenya, just giving his insights on the political wave in the country right now. That's it from the Daily Brief this afternoon. Thanks for making time for me. I'm Alan Abinadab. Owino Clement Buli was on the sign language. Just coming right up next is K24 Newscast. Don't touch that dial.